You know the drill. If he gets out of his box, I will have to pause briefly to rescue my phone from his teeth. All right, we're doing the Running Man, but this is going to be it. We're on -39 and counting, and I'm going to do until, well, we'll do 35. And we'll leave it there. And after that, please go out and buy the book. Stephen King, he is very, he's got a lot of books out there, but even so, he deserves the support. Even even older ones and ones with less savory storylines, but we'll get started. -39 and counting. My name is Amelia Williams. Benjamin Richards is holding me hostage. If you don't give us safe conduct, he says he'll kill me. Silence for a moment, so complete that Richards could hear the faraway honk of some distant yacht's air horn. Then, asexual? Blaring, amplified. We want to talk to Ben Richards. No, Richards said swiftly. He says he won't. Come out of the car, ma'am. He'll kill me, she cried wildly. Don't you listen? Some men almost killed us back there. He says that you don't care who you kill. My God, is he right? A hoarse voice in the crowd yelled, Let her through. Come out of the car or we'll shoot. Let her through, let her through. The crowd had taken up the chant, like eager fans at a kill ball match. Come out. The crowd drowned it out. From somewhere a rock flew. A police car windshield shattered into a matrix of cracks. There was suddenly a rev of motors, and the two cruisers began to pull apart, opening a narrow slot of pavement. The crowd cheered happily and then fell silent, waiting for the next act. All civilians leave the area, the bullhorn chanted. There may be shooting. All civilians leave the area, or you may be charged with obstruction and unlawful assembly. The penalty for obstruction and unlawful assembly is 10 years in the state penitentiary or a fine of $10,000 or both. Clear the area, clear the area. Yeah, so no one will see you shoot the girl, a hysterical voice yelled. Screw all pigs. The crowd didn't move. A yellow and black Newsy-mobile had pulled up with a flashy screech. Two men jumped out and began setting up a camera. Two cops rushed over, and there was a short, savage scuffle for the possession of the camera. Then one of the cops yanked it free, picked it up by the tripod, and smashed it onto the road. One of the newsmen tried to reach the cop that had done it and was clubbed. A small boy darted out of the crowd and fired a rock at the back of the cop's head. Blood splattered on the road and the cop fell over. A half-dozen more descended on the boy, bearing him off. Incredibly, small and savage fistfights began on the sidelines between the well-dressed town folk and the rattier slum dwellers. A woman in a ripped and faded house dress suddenly descended on a plump matron and began to pull her hair. They fell heavily to the road and began to roll on the macadam, kicking and screaming. My God, Amelia said sickly. What's happening? Richards asked. He dared look no higher than the clock on the dashboard. Fights? Police hitting people? Someone broke the Newsies camera. Give up, Richards. Come out. Drive on, Richards said softly. The car jerked forward erratically. They'll shoot for the air caps, she said. Then wait until you have to come out. They won't, Richards said. Why? They're too dumb. They didn't. They proceeded slowly past the ranked police cars and the bug-eyed spectators. It split themselves into two groups in unconscious segregation. On one side of the road were the middle and upper-class citizens and the ladies who had their hair done at the parlour, and men who wore arrow shirts and loafers, fellows wearing coveralls with company names on the back of their own, and in their own names stitched in gold thread over the breast pocket. women like Amelia Williams herself, dressed for market and shops. Their faces were different in all ways, but similar in one. They looked oddly incomplete, like pictures with holes for eyes, or a jigsaw puzzle with a piece missing. There was a lack of desperation, Richards thought. No wolves howled in these bellies. These minds were not filled with rotted, crazed dreams or mad hopes. These people were on the right side of the road, the side that faced the combination marina, the country club. They were just passing. On the other side, the left, were the poor people, red noses with burst veins, flattened, sagging breasts, stringy hair, white socks, cold sores, pimples, the blank and hanging mouths of idiocy. The, thought I was going to sneeze. The police were deployed more heavily here, and more were coming all the time. Richards was not surprised at the swiftness and the heaviness of their crunch, despite the suddenness of his appearance. Even here, in Boondocks, USA, the club and the gun were kept near to hand. The dogs were kept hungry in the kennel. The poor break into summer cottages closed for autumn and winter. The poor crash supermarkets in sub-teen gangs. The poor have been known to soap badly spelled obscenities on shop windows. The poor always have itchy assholes in the sight of Knock-a-Hide and Chrome, and $200 suits and fat bellies have been known to make the mouths of the poor fill with angry spit. And the poor must have their Jack Johnson, their Muhammad Ali, their Clyde Barrow. They stood and watched. Here on the right, we have the summer people, Richards thought, fat and sloppy, but heavy with armour. On the right, weighing only at 130, but scrappy contender with a mean and rolling eyeball, we have the hungry honkies. Theirs are the politics of starvation. They'd roll Christ himself for a pound of salami. Polarization comes to the west, Sticksville. Watch out for these contenders, though. They don't stay in the ring. They have a tendency to fight in the $10 seats. Can we find a goat to hang up for both of them? Slowly, rolling at 30, Ben Richards passed between them. Minus 38, and counting. An hour passed. It was 4 o'clock. Shadows crawled across the road. Richards slumped down at eye level in his seat, floated in and out of consciousness effortlessly. He had clumsily pulled his shirt out of his pants to look at the new wound. The bullet had dug deep and ugly in a canal in his side that bled a great deal. The blood had clotted, but grudgingly. He had to move quickly again. Or when he had to move quickly again, the wound would rip open and bleed a great deal more. Didn't matter. They were going to blow him up. In the face of this massive armory, his plan was a joke. But he would go ahead with it, fill in the blanks until there was an accident, and the air car was blown into bent bolts and shards of metal. Terrible accident. The trooper had to be suspended pending full investigation. Regret the loss of innocent life. All this buried in the last newsy of the day, between the stock market report and the Pope's last pronouncement. But it was only reflex. He had become increasingly worried about Amelia Williams, whose big mistake had been picking Wednesday morning to do her marketing. There are tanks out there, she said suddenly. Her voice was light, chatty, hysterical. Can you imagine it? Can you... She began to cry. Richards waited. Finally, he said, What town are we in? Winterport. The sign said, Oh, I can't. I can't wait for them to do it. I can't. Okay, he said. She blinked slowly. giving an infinitesimal shake of her head as if to clear it. What? Stop? Get out? But they'll kill you. Yes, but there won't be any blood. You won't see any blood. They've got enough firepower to vaporize me and this car too. You're lying. You'll kill me. The gun had been dangling between his knees. He dropped it to the floor. It clunked harmlessly on the rubber floor mat. I want some pot, she said mindlessly. Oh God, I want to be high. Why didn't you wait for the next car? Richards began to laugh. He laughed a wheezy, shallow-chested heaves that still hurt his side. He closed his eyes and laughed until tears oozed out from under the lids. It's cold in here with that broken windshield, she said irrelevantly. Turn on the heater. Her face was pale, blotch in the shadows of the late afternoon. -37, and counting. We're in Derry, she said. The streets were black with people. They hung over roof ledges and sat in balconies and verandas from which the summer furniture had been removed. They ate sandwiches and fried chicken from greasy buckets. Are there jetport signs? Yes, I'm following them. They'll just close the gates. I'll just threaten to kill you again if they do. Are you going to skyjack a plane? I'm going to try. You can't? I'm sure you're right. They made a right, then a left. Bullhorns exhorted the crowd monotonously to move back, to disperse. Is she really your wife, that woman in the pictures? Yes, her name is Sheila. Our baby, Kathy, is a year and a half old. She had the flu. Maybe she's better now. That's how I got into this. A helicopter buzzed them, leaving a huge arachnid shadow on the road ahead. A grossly amplified voice exhorted Richards to let the woman go. When it was gone, and they could speak again, she said, Your wife looks like a little tramp. She should take better care of herself. That picture was doctored, Richard said tonelessly. They would do that. They would do that. The jetport. They're coming up to it. Are the gates shut? I can't see. Wait. Open, but blocked. A tank. It's pointing its shooter at us. Drive to within 30 feet of it and stop. The car crawled slowly down the four-lane access road between the parked police cars, between the ceaseless scream and babble of the crowd. A sign loomed over them, Voigt Airfield. The woman could see an electrified cyclone fence, which crossed a marshy, worthless sort of field on both sides of the road. Straight ahead was a combination information booth and checkpoint on the traffic island. Beyond that was the main gate, blocked by an A-62 tank, capable of firing 1/4 megaton shells from its cannon. Farther on, a confusion of roads and parking lots, all tending toward the complex jetline terminals that blocked the runways from view. A huge control tower bulked over everything like an H.G. Wells Martian. The westering sun glared off its polarizing bank of windows and turned them to fire. Employees and passengers alike had crowded round to the nearest parking lot, and they were being held back by more police. There was a pulsing, heavy whine in their ears, and Amelia saw a steel-grey Lockheed GA Superbird rising into a flat, powerful climb on one of the runways behind the main buildings. Richards! She jumped and looked at him, frightened. He waved his hand at her nonchalantly. It's all right, Ma. I'm only dying. You're not allowed inside, the huge amplified voice admonished him. Let the woman go. Step out. What now? She asked. It's a standoff. They'll just wait until... Let's push them a little further, Richard said. They'll bluff along a little more. Lean out. Tell them I'm hurt and half crazy. Tell them I want to give up to the airline police. You want to do what? The airline police are neither state or federal. They've been international ever since the UN Treaty of 1995. There used to be a story that if you gave up to them, you'd get amnesty, sort of like landing on free parking in Monopoly. Full of shit, of course. They turn you over to the hunters, and the hunters drag you out to the back of the barn. She winced. But maybe they'll think I'll believe it, or that I fooled myself into believing it. Go ahead and tell them. She leaned out, and Richards tensed. If there was going to be a, quote, unfortunate accident, and they would remove Amelia from the picture, that would probably happen now. Her head and upper body were clearly and cleanly exposed to 1,000 guns. One squeeze on one trigger, and the entire farce would come to an end quick. Ben Richards wants to give up to the airline police, she cried. He's shot in 2 places. She threw a terrified glance over her shoulder, and her voice broke. High and clear in the sudden silence, the diminishing jet had left. He's been out of his mind half the time, and God, I'm so frightened. Please, please, please. The cameras were recording it all, sending it on live feed, and would be broadcast all over North America and half the world in a matter of minutes. That was good. That was fine. Richard felt tension stiffen his limbs again. He knew it was the beginning to hope. Silence for a moment. There was a conference going on behind the checkpoint booth. Very good, Richard said softly. She looked at him. Do you think it's hard to sound frightened? We're not in this together, whatever you think. I want you to go away. Richards noticed for the first time how perfect her breasts were beneath the blood-stained black and green blouse, how perfect and how precious. There was a sudden, grinding roar, and she screamed aloud. It's the tank, he said. It's okay, just the tank. It's moving, she said. They're going to let us in. Richards, you will proceed to lot 16. Airline police will be waiting for you there to take you into custody. All right, he said thinly. Drive on. When you get half a mile inside the gate, stop. You're going to get me killed, she said hopelessly. All I need to do is use the bathroom, and you're going to get me killed. The air car lifted 4 inches and hummed smoothly forward. Richards crouched, going through the gate, anticipating a possible ambush, but there was none. The smooth black top curved sedately through the main buildings, a sign with a pointed arrow informing them that this was the way to lots 16 to 20. Here were police standing and kneeling behind yellow barricades. Richards knew that at the slightest suspicious move, they would tear the air car apart. Now stop, he said, and she did. The reaction was instantaneous. Richards, move immediately to lot 16. Tell them that I want a bullhorn, Richard said softly to her. They're to leave one in the road 20 yards up. I want to talk to them. She cried his message, and then they waited. A moment later, a man in a blue uniform trotted out to the road and laid an electric bullhorn down. He stood there for a moment, perhaps savouring the realization that he was being seen by 500 million people, and then withdrew to a barricaded anonymity again. Go ahead, he told her. They crept up to the bullhorn, and when the driver's side door was even with it, she opened the door and pulled it in. It was red and white, the letters G and A embossed over a thunderbolt that were on the side. Okay, he said. How far are we from the main building? She squinted. Quarter mile, I guess. How far are we from lot 16? Half that. Good, that's good. Yeah. He realized he was compulsively biting his lips and trying to make himself stop. His head hurt. His entire body ached from adrenaline. Keep driving, go up to the entrance of lot 16, and then stop. Then what? He smiled tightly and unhappily. That, he said, is going to be the site of Richard's last stand. Minus 36, and counting. When he stopped the car at the entrance of the parking lot, the reaction was quick and immediate. Keep moving, the bullhorn prodded. The airport police are inside, as specified. Richards raised his own bullhorn for the first time. 10 minutes, he said. I have to think. Silence again. Don't you realize you're pushing them to do it? She said in a strange, controlled voice. He uttered a weird, squeezed giggle that sounded like a stream under high pressure escaping from a teapot. They know I'm getting set to screw them. They don't know how. You can't, she said. Do you see that yet? Maybe I can, he said. And that's us. From 35 to the end, I will leave that for you. You, dear listener. But hope you enjoyed coming on this journey with me. It's not a book I've read, or part of the book I've read myself. Um, and I'll read it myself, obviously, toward the end. Yeah, I still prefer the movie. So Schwarzenegger was good, isn't he? Um, very, very different. Possibly just about as different as you can get from that, isn't it? There's rumors of a remake of it going around, or at least my Google News feed has been telling me that, possibly because it's been listening in on me reading the book. But thank you for listening. I'll get this uploaded. I'm away this week. I will try to, I will endeavor to see. YouTube apparently has some function where you can upload it different days without you actually being there, but I won't have access to a laptop. I'm out of the country, so if it doesn't work, sorry, you'll get the both of them once I come back. And thank you for listening.